Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Project Hail Mary trailer breakdown. First, I'd like to thank everyone who watched part 1 and all your great comments as well. As I said in my previous video, this breakdown contains spoilers. Major spoilers. I mean it. Major spoilers. Alright. On to part 2. Before we start on part 2, let's examine some things I missed in part 1. Thanks to Lee Russell for spotting a few things. There's a good chance that Dmitry Komarov is not Russian like in the book. Here is a close-up of him as he has a senior Indian officer close behind him. Also, as Rylan is climbing the Hail Mary, we see a few builder country flags, and Russia is nowhere in sight. Next, before Strat explains Project Hail Mary, we see Rylan in the foreground with what looks to be an LPU or life preserver unit, which he doesn't have in later scenes. So I'm guessing he did get transported to a ship or carrier. Alright. On to part 2. We get the needle drop of Sign of the Times by Harry Styles, as we see a rocket launch, which might be a parts launch for the Hail Mary. In the book, they launch parts of the Hail Mary into orbit to assemble at the International Space Station. The 9th launch is what the crew might be watching on TV, which in the book contains the payload of the cockpit, lab, and living quarters. Here in the trailer, it appears Rylan was recently woken up from the coma based on him wearing the coma medical suit still, and then he looks out the window to discover he's in space. It feels they will be shortening the scenes of Rylan waking up from his coma and wondering where he is. We're about halfway through the trailer now, and we see Rylan on the floor wearing a middle school student's fuzzy hat, perhaps? A care package from his students? I get the feeling this is after Rocky and Rylan part ways, back to their homes to save their worlds after finding Teliva, which eats astrophage. Next, we see Rylan shaving his beard, which appears to be after he first explores the ship. On the right, we see the medical arms that took care of the crew while they were in their comas, although not very well. Alright, let's talk about those fins. Some have speculated these are solar panels. I'm guessing these are more like radiator fins, or heat rejection subsystem radiators similar to what they have on the International Space Station. I believe they are used to dissipate the heat coming off the back of the engines, which according to the book, the Hail Mary is capable of 30 million newtons. A test of just 60,000 newtons melted a thick metal plate. I'm guessing they figured all that heat had to be dissipated, otherwise the ship's hull would just melt. Here we see an interesting image of a gold plate with etches of evolution progression. Perhaps it's an updated version of the gold record we sent on the Voyager spacecrafts. Or this is an image Rylan etched for his classroom. At the end of the story, Rylan Grace looking a little older, perhaps deciding to help the stranded Rocky, or getting ready to start his lesson for his new class. Thank you, Mr. Weir, for another amazing story. This appears to be a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. Not sure if this is the research vessel for Project Hail Mary. Based on the number of people at the bow of the ship, they might be watching the nuclear devices detonating in the Antarctic. Next, we have a scene of what I'm guessing is the launch party for the rocket taking the parts to the International Space Station for assembly to the Hail Mary. For my educated guesses, from left to right we have Dr. Dubois in the lower left, Dr. Shapiro in the red shirt, Dmitry Komarov or some Indian scientist in the plaid shirt. Not sure who's in the middle, maybe Commander Yao. And to the right, wearing a cute shirt, Dr. Ilyukna, not drinking vodka. Too much of a stereotype? While editing this video, I noticed the person in the middle has the same rainbow pattern on his shirt as the jacket Rylan is wearing on board the Hail Mary earlier in the trailer. Some have speculated this is Strat singing karaoke. I'm not too sure about that. It could be a speech Strat is giving with some clever editing, but man, the music matches her lips almost perfectly. Perhaps Rylan is looking amused, watching Strat sing karaoke, showing a side of her that's not all business. Okay, I'm convinced it's Strat singing. Those sure look like lyrics from a karaoke machine on the back screen. Next we get a scene of Rylan being a great teacher with a voiceover.
I understand the stakes. I do.
This is probably Rylan explaining to Strat why he won't be going on the mission. Here we have Rylan playing with a model of the Hail Mary, hitting a 28 marked on a whiteboard. This looks like he's on Earth, but I could be wrong. Couldn't find any significance with the number 28 in the book. Maybe this is him on the Hail Mary, and the 28th is when he gets to Tau Ceti to research why the astrophage isn't eating the star. Strat throws a hacky sack to Rylan. It appears they've replaced the beanbags from the book with hacky sacks, as this is what Rylan throws in the classroom. Strat tells Rylan that the world is counting on him. Not sure when this takes place. It might be when he starts to study the astrophage at the beginning of the book. Next we get what I'm pretty sure is a drawing by one of Ryland's students. Not sure who's taping it to what, a window, transparent astrophage. Drop a comment below if you think you know. This appears to be something new that's in the movie that wasn't in the book. It looks like a wall of monitors to watch images and hear the sounds of Earth, a way to decompress. Reminds me of the Earth room in the movie Sunshine. Here's an emotional scene in the book where we see Ryland committing Commander Yao to the stars after not surviving the coma. I'm positive this is Yao based on the Chinese flag on his shoulder. This is a good shot of the lab/living quarters, and in the lower left of the shot, could these be the cables to extend the section for artificial gravity? Ryland getting pretty emotional at something. Could be any number of things, but based on his clothes, I'm betting this is after the astrophage explosion. I thought this might be when they detonate the nuclear devices in the Antarctic, but now it feels like the Earth room. Based on the lines here, I feel this is Ryland debating whether to save his friend or go home. Another shot of Ryland, which looks to be on the Hail Mary with Rocky's tunnel system. Ryland slamming his fist in anger? Is this when they first try to introduce the Teliva to a Venus-like atmosphere, but they all die? Next we have Strat's bodyguard telling Ryland that he'll do great. Might be a scene between the decision to have Ryland go on the mission and the meeting where Strat forces him to go. Here we have a nice view of the centrifugal gravity system lever, and Grace slowly experiencing one Earth gravity. Is Ryland pulling a Mark Watney and growing plants? My guess is they brought everything they could possibly need for experiments when they reached Tau Ceti. Another slight change from the book if this is true. A successful EVA. Which one could it be? The Teliva Collector? This appears to be back on Earth. Ryland is wearing a hazmat suit when experimenting on the astrophage. This is when Ryland pokes the astrophage with a sharp stick. You can see the petri dish and monitor showing the killed astrophage at the bottom left. Here we have a beautiful shot of the Hail Mary within the Petrova line, I'm assuming, and one of Ryland's EVAs to grab the Teliva Collector or one of Rocky's canisters when they first met. My vote is on the latter since I don't see any atmosphere. And that object that's approaching is our first glimpse at Blip A. Not how I imagined it from the description in the book, but damn, it's pretty good looking. I'm wondering if all the rods extending across the Blip A allow the robotic arms on Rocky's ship to move around. Here we have the famous tube from Blip A, connecting to the Hail Mary. Also, I'm not sure where they're keeping the beetles. In the book, they are stored in the nose of the ship. Maybe that's where they are here. I have seen some comments that express some worry they gave Rocky eyes. Based on this tube being completely pitch dark, I'm going to say no eyes for Rocky. Our first glimpse of an iridium, specifically Rocky's claw.
I'll call it a hand. That's less scary.
I will be curious how they handled the difference between the two atmospheres. At this moment, anyone unfamiliar with the book is probably thinking, is this a horror movie? But that thought disappears almost instantly.
So, I met an alien. He's kind of growing on me. At least he's not growing in me, which was a concern for a little while.
A couple of other things. Is this Ryland's makeshift Rocky translator he builds in the book? Also, I haven't found a high-res version of the trailer to make out what's all on this whiteboard. It sure looks like the heading of Who Am I, followed by Science Teacher, Bay Area, and I also see astrophage as well. It appears they're using the same technique of talking to the camera or recording logs from the movie The Martian. And a nice shot of Rocky's hand, not claw. Starting with the quick cuts, we have a shot of Ryland and Rocky, who's on the left in his hamster ball, listening to the sounds of Earth. I'm guessing celebrating the successful breeding of Teliva 82-5. It appears there's some bad things happening aboard the Hail Mary. Could be Teliva sneaking their way into the fuel. More celebrating with Rocky in the Earth room. This appears to be the Hail Mary in the atmosphere of Tau Ceti E to collect the Teliva. Next is a pivotal scene. This is where the Hail Mary is thrusting out of control. The bolts holding the seat Ryland is in snap and throw him against the panel, suffocating him. Although soon, he will start to smell ammonia. Another shot of the Hail Mary orbiting Tau Ceti E. One thing we don't see in the trailer, we never see the Hail Mary actively using its spin drives, which are the multiple thrusters using astrophage as fuel. Perhaps in a future trailer? Here's a nice shot of Rocky touching Ryland's Earth hacky sack. But what the hell is going on in the background? This could be a scene in the Earth room with fireworks going off in the background. Finally, we have the scene in the tunnel where Rylan and Rocky are learning to communicate. As in the book, the whole wall has been replaced with translucent xenonite after they initially meet. Now, it does appear there is gravity in the tube. There is some debate on whether they're simulating gravity somehow, or Iridian technology has artificial gravity. Rylan might be sticking to the bottom of the tube somehow, but so is the equipment. If they were continuously thrusting at the same time, that could create gravity. They would both need to be going at the exact same speed, or the tube would just rip apart. I don't see any other way to accomplish this. Maybe you have an idea? March 20th, 2026. Some time dilation would be really nice now. And that is the end of the trailer. Some final thoughts. Drew Goddard did a great job adapting the novel The Martian. Although I'm not a fan of the Iron Man scene, I believe the film adaptation will be on par or perhaps better than The Martian. I'm torn how early they released the trailer. We've still got 9 months to wait. But with a new IP, I get they need time to build hype. It's not like a sequel that comes with built-in anticipation. Should they have shown Rocky? It was such a powerful reveal in the book, and part of me wishes they'd saved it. But then again, for those who don't know the story, showing him will set the film apart from looking like just another Interstellar clone. Another likely reason they revealed Rocky in the trailer is that the story has been out since 2021. After 4 years, it's tough to keep a spoiler like that under wraps, especially when many book summaries you search online mention Rylan meeting and befriending an alien. I read the book Project Hail Mary when it first came out, because I loved The Martian by Andy Weir. At first, Project Hail Mary felt like another story of a lone man against the elements, but by the end of chapter 6, the reveal completely shifted the direction of the story. I wanted everyone I knew to experience that same jaw-dropping moment. It's been a problem for a while where movie trailers reveal too many of the story's plot points. It's one of the reasons I started reading books later in my life, although the trailer didn't give away all the surprises. This is the end of my Project Hail Mary breakdown.
Amaze! Amaze, amaze, amaze!
If I get enough comments from people finding more items or a new trailer comes out, I'll try to create a follow-up video. Thanks for watching.